All right, let's dive right into wedding planning essentials. Getting married, woo! Whether you just got engaged or you're already like knee deep in seating charts and stressing about centerpieces, we're going to break down all the must knows from your source material today.
Definitely. And it's funny, you've provided a podcast episode as the source.
Yeah.
Um, but that works out perfectly for our purposes. We're going to extract the key points, give you some extra tips, and put all this advice into action.
They don't waste any time. They jump right into the B word, budgeting.
Oh, the dreaded budget.
Yeah. I know it can feel a little, well, unromantic at first,
Right.
but I totally agree with them. It really is the foundation for everything. Like, if you don't have that solid number, you're kind of building a house on sand.
Exactly. It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint.
Yeah.
You just end up with a mess.
Yeah.
And they suggest, starting with that realistic total number, it's so tempting to get swept away in the excitement.
I know.
And just start picturing that Pinterest perfect day.
Oh, yeah.
But having a firm grasp on your finances right from the get-go, that is crucial. That means sitting down with your partner and figuring out what you can truly afford without, starting your marriage in debt.
Right, right.
So yeah, once you have that magic number, it's all about breaking it down. You can think of it like a pie chart.
Oh, I like that visual.
Yeah, with slices for venue, catering, photography, flowers, attire, all those pieces.
Makes total sense. Okay, so let's say we have that number, we've broken it down. What's the best way to keep track of everything? Is a simple spreadsheet the way to go?
A spreadsheet can definitely be a lifesaver. And, there are also budgeting apps out there, like Mint, for example.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Those can be super helpful too. Or even just like a good old-fashioned notebook. The key is to, whatever you choose, categorize those expenses, set spending limits, and most importantly, track every single dollar. That's going to help you stay on track.
Okay, stay organized.
Yes, stay organized. And, it also helps you spot areas where you might be able to trim without sacrificing your vision.
Right, because let's be real, those costs can add up fast. The podcast even mentions building in a 5 to 10% cushion for those unexpected costs. What are some of those hidden costs that couples often forget about?
Oh, there are so many. Like alterations
Oh, right.
for bridesmaid dresses or even your own gown. I mean, those can add up quickly. Or maybe you fall in love with a venue.
The perfect venue.
The perfect venue. But then you find out it doesn't include things like linens or chairs, so suddenly you're looking at rental fees.
Right, right.
And then don't forget about postage for invitations.
Oh, especially if they're fancy.
Especially if they're elaborate or you have a massive guest list.
Yeah.
Even things like tips for vendors, which you should definitely budget for.
Of course.
Or parking fees for guests if the venue has limited parking. It all adds up.
Those unexpected costs are like little gremlins, just popping up where you least expect them. I remember at a friend's wedding, they totally forgot about favors. And then, like, last minute, they had to scramble to find something.
Oh, I've heard those stories.
And they ended up spending way too much on these personalized candles. Like, way more than they had planned.
Oh, that's so common. It's those little things that can really sneak up on you.
Yeah.
Which actually brings us to another critical element the podcast touched on, the guest list.
Ooh, yes, the guest list. It's a delicate dance, isn't it?
It is.
You want to celebrate with everyone you love, but sometimes that's just not realistic or even possible. How do you even begin to create a manageable guest list?
Well, this is where the podcast advice about keeping it personal and manageable really comes into play. I always recommend starting with a system of tiers. So like your innermost circle, those absolute must-haves.
The VIPs.
Yeah, the VIPs, those are your tier one. Usually that's immediate family, closest friends.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then you work outwards. Tier two might be extended family, close friends of your parents, things like that, and so on.
Ah, I see. So it's not just randomly adding names until you hit a certain number. It's strategically prioritizing.
Exactly. And remember, it's a discussion to have with your partner.
Oh, of course.
Involve each other, be respectful of each other's priorities, and don't be afraid to have those honest conversations about who makes the cut for each tier. You might even consider having a polite decline script ready, just in case you need to explain to someone why they're not invited.
Oh, that's smart.
Right?
Having that prepped in advance would definitely take some of the pressure off.
It takes the pressure off, and it also helps with sticking to your budget.
Oh, right.
Because every guest adds to the cost.
Every single person.
Every single person, whether it's food, drinks, favors, or even just the space they take up in the venue.
Okay, I'm starting to understand the ripple effect of every decision here. Now, can we talk about the venue? I love how the podcast emphasized that it really sets the whole tone. Are you picturing a garden party, a ballroom bash, or maybe something rustic and outdoors?
I love that they emphasize the importance of capturing the essence of your love story.
Yes.
But beyond the aesthetics, while you're dreaming about, your perfect backdrop, don't forget about the logistics. Think about your guest list. How many people can this venue realistically accommodate?
And is it accessible?
Exactly. If you have guests with mobility issues, that's crucial.
Yeah, that's really important.
And then there are those hidden costs we were just talking about. What exactly IS included in that venue rental fee? Tables, chairs, linens, are those extras?
You have to ask all the questions.
And remember what we said about catering?
Some venues have restrictions or require you to use their in-house catering, which can definitely affect your choices and your budget. But I'm curious though, what is each of your personal dream venue vibes? I'm kind of torn between a charming vineyard and a super chic rooftop.
Ooh, that's a tough one. You know me, I'm drawn to natural beauty. Give me a ceremony overlooking a lake, surrounded by trees. That's my happy
I
place.
could totally picture it. Okay, listener, while you're envisioning your perfect backdrop, remember what the podcast highlighted about availability. If you have a popular date or season in mind, you've got to lock that venue down early. You don't want to miss out.
That's a great point. And actually, this might be a good time to move on to vendors, since booking them early is also crucial. It's like assembling your wedding dream team.
Right, you've got to bring that vision to life. Your photographer, videographer, caterer, florist, entertainment, they're all such key players. Where do you even start?
The podcast is spot on with their advice about recommendations. Your network is gold. Ask friends, family, colleagues for referrals.
Word of mouth is everything.
Yes, word of mouth. And don't underestimate the power of online reviews. You can really get a feel for a vendor's style and their reliability.
They had a great tip about choosing a photographer specifically. It's not just about finding someone who takes great pictures. It's about finding someone whose style aligns with your vision.
Absolutely. Do you gravitate towards candid documentary-style shots, or do you prefer more posed, formal portraits? These are all things to consider before you even start browsing photographers' portfolios.
And it applies to other vendors too,
Oh,
right?
coolly.
Like finding a florist whose arrangements match your aesthetic or a DJ who understands the vibe you're going for.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that synergy. And don't be afraid to interview multiple vendors in each category. This is an investment in your memories.
Yes.
So it's worth the effort to find the perfect fit.
This is making me think a lot more strategically about those vendor choices. It's not just checking names off a list.
Yeah.
What else should we keep in mind when it comes to vendors? We were just getting into some really helpful tips about choosing your vendors, really building that dream team.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with all that, I think it's time to talk timeline.
Oh, yeah.
I know from experience, wedding planning can feel like this overwhelming whirlwind of decisions and to-dos.
I hear that.
How do we keep everything on track?
Well, the podcast uses a great analogy. They compare your wedding timeline to a roadmap.
Okay.
And they're right. Without it, you're kind of just wandering around hoping for the best.
Yeah.
A detailed timeline. It's your key to a smooth, stress-free celebration.
So they break it down into when to tackle certain tasks, like by when should you have this done, when should you have that done.
Right.
So let's dive into that. What are some of those key milestones we should be aiming for?
All right. Well, they recommend, first of all, finalizing your guest list and booking those big-ticket vendors like your photographer, your venue, and caterer.
Okay, the big ones.
About 6 to 8 months out.
6 to 8 months.
This gives you plenty of time to research, compare quotes, and secure those top choices.
That makes a lot of sense. Getting those big things locked in early, I feel like that would just ease my mind.
Totally.
But then what? It feels like there are a million little details to remember.
Oh, there are. But don't worry, we'll get to those.
Okay.
The podcast suggests sending out invitations about 2 to 3 months before the wedding.
Okay.
This also gives your guests ample time to RSVP and make travel arrangements if needed.
Right. And speaking of travel, I guess that's around the time you'd need to finalize hotel blocks for any out-of-town guests or arrange transportation if your ceremony and reception are in different locations.
Exactly. And don't forget about one very crucial detail.
Okay.
Securing that marriage license.
Oh, right.
Yes, you need that piece of paper.
The requirements vary depending on where you live, so it's important to do your research early on and make sure you have all the necessary paperwork in order.
Yeah, you don't want to be scrambling for paperwork at the last minute.
Definitely not.
Okay, so we've got those big milestones, but what about all those little details?
Right. Well, the podcast recommends creating a more detailed timeline for the month leading up to the wedding.
Okay, like a month of timeline.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
This includes things like confirming all those vendor details, finalizing seating charts, creating a playlist for your DJ or band, anything else that needs to be wrapped up.
Sounds like that last month is all about dotting your I's and crossing your T's, basically. But amidst all the planning frenzy, the podcast also emphasizes the importance of self-care.
Oh, yes. Self-care. Always important.
Make sure you're still taking time for yourself. Relaxing, de-stressing, especially in that final week before the big day.
Oh, yeah, that final week. I can imagine the anticipation and nerves building up. Do you have any advice for staying calm and present during those last few days?
Well, first of all, deep breaths are your best friend.
Okay, deep breaths. Got it.
The podcast suggests having that final dress fitting, triple-checking your timeline with all your vendors, and packing your bags if you're going on a honeymoon right after.
Okay, that sounds manageable. But what about the wedding day itself? Even with the best planning, I feel like things can still go wrong.
Oh, they can. And that's where the podcast's wedding day tips come in. They advise focusing on 3 key things: delegating, staying present, and expecting the unexpected.
Okay, delegating makes total sense. You don't have to be a superhero on your wedding day. Lean on those trusted friends and family. You know your wedding party, your parents, they can handle those last-minute details.
Absolutely. And staying present.
Yeah.
That's huge. It's so easy to get caught up in the logistics and the timeline and just forget to actually enjoy the moment.
Yeah, it's your day.
Take mental snapshots throughout the day. Savor those conversations, the laughter, the happy tears, the dancing. These are the memories that will last a lifetime.
Okay, I'm already feeling emotional, but what about that last tip? Expecting the unexpected. That's what I'm most nervous about. What if something goes terribly wrong?
Well, here's the thing. If you go into the day expecting absolute perfection, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
That's true.
There are always going to be little hiccups,
Okay.
but it's all about how you handle them.
Right.
And the podcast reminds us, those little mishaps? They can actually become some of the most memorable parts of the day.
So it's about embracing the unexpected with a sense of humor and flexibility.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen any wedding day mishaps that turned into, like, funny stories later?
Oh, absolutely. I once saw a best man forget the rings,
Oh, no.
but he quickly ran back to the hotel and made it back just in time. Everyone laughed, the ceremony continued, and it became this funny story to tell for years to come.
That's amazing. It really shows that it's not about flawless execution. It's about the love and the joy that you're sharing with the people you love most.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. Should we recap before we wrap things up?
Yeah, let's do a quick recap.
Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground here in this deep dive into wedding planning essentials.
Yeah, we have.
We've unpacked that podcast episode, given you, our listeners, some solid takeaways.
Absolutely.
I feel like you should be able to tackle anything.
I think so, too.
But now I want to turn it over to you, our expert,
Okay.
for one final thought. Something to really ponder as you continue on this wedding planning journey.
We've talked about budget, guest list, the venue, the vendors, that timeline, all those essential building blocks.
To the essentials.
But beyond those practicalities, think about this. What one unique element do you want to prioritize to make your wedding truly special and reflective of you as a couple?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, we need all the logistics,
Right.
but then there's that special something extra
Yeah,
that makes it uniquely yours.
absolutely.
So is it, a particular theme, a family tradition you want to incorporate, a surprise performance for your guests,
Yeah.
or something else entirely?
Exactly. It's those personal touches that transform a wedding from just a lovely event into a truly unforgettable experience.
So true. So as you move forward, remember all those specific tips we've discussed, that budget breakdown, the strategies for creating your guest list, the advice for choosing the perfect venue and vendors, all of that's here. You can revisit this deep dive as you navigate each step of the way.
Absolutely.
And above all, don't lose sight of the bigger picture. This is about celebrating your love. A commitment to building a life together. Savor the journey. Embrace all those moments. And create a day that reflects the unique beauty of your partnership.
I love that. That's so beautiful.
Oh, congratulations on your engagement.
Yes, congratulations.
And from both of us, we wish you a joyous and memorable wedding journey.